These are the 10 richest black families in the world, and the money gets more and more ridiculous as we move through the list. You'll see a Tanzanian dynasty whose heir was kidnapped in broad daylight and returned to run 37,000 employees. A St. Louis family whose founder once watched his car get repossessed outside his own office. And at number 1, we have a clan that can make the cement, refine the fuel, and practically build a country by itself. Let's get into it. Number 10. The Otedola family. Let's begin the countdown with a family that has already learned the billionaire lesson nobody wants to learn. Being rich once does not guarantee you stay rich. Femi Otedola built his first major fortune in Nigerian commodities and petroleum, eventually becoming the controlling figure behind Fort Oil. At the peak, his name was attached to fuel depots, tankers, and a business empire that looked almost impossible to shake. Then the oil market turned, the share price collapsed, debt piled up, and Otedola dropped out of the billionaire ranks. That is the part most glossy profiles skip, because billionaire stories usually prefer the private jet and quietly lose interest when the bank starts calling. Otedola did not disappear. He sold his controlling interest in Fort Oil, redirected his capital into power generation, and became the dominant shareholder in Geregu Power, one of Nigeria's major electricity producers. In 2025, he sold most of that stake in a deal that reportedly put roughly $750 million into his pocket, while retaining a smaller position. Forbes now places him at around $1.7 billion. And this is where the family angle gets much more entertaining. His children did not simply wait around for a reading of the will. Florence Otedola became the internationally known DJ Cuppy. Temi built a career in acting and fashion. Talani moved into music. So one generation made money from fuel and power, while the next turned the family name into culture, entertainment, and influence. Different products, same distribution strategy. You have to respect the range. One daughter is working a festival stage while her father is thinking about electricity grids. Most families struggle to agree on where to order dinner. This one has diversified across the national power system and the playlist. The Otedolas rebuilt after losing billionaire status, which is impressive. Our next family built something even harder to escape, because its products are sitting in kitchens, wardrobes, and shops across an entire country. Number 9. The Dewji family. Mohammed Dewji runs a business empire so woven into daily life in Tanzania that avoiding it is almost impossible. The cooking oil, soap, flour, drinks, fabric, packaging, and fuel around you may all have passed through the same family company before breakfast. The story began in the 1970s when his father, Gulamabas Dewji, built a small trading operation called Mohammed Enterprises Tanzania Limited, better known as METL. Mohammed joined the company in 1999 after studying in the United States, and instead of treating the family business like a comfortable inheritance, he pushed it aggressively into local manufacturing. He bought privatized factories, expanded distribution, integrated supply chains, and turned a trading house into one of East Africa's largest industrial groups. Today, METL operates across manufacturing, agriculture, logistics, insurance, and global trading. The group says it employs roughly 37,000 people and serves markets across at least 6 African countries. Its textile division alone produces more than 100 million running meters of fabric a year. That is enough cloth to make a very long shirt, although tailoring it may become a national infrastructure project. Then, in October 2018, the entire story took a frightening turn. Dewji was kidnapped at gunpoint outside a hotel gym in Dar es Salaam and held for 9 days. He was eventually released, but imagine returning from that and walking back into a company with tens of thousands of employees, factories across several industries, and a family legacy depending on your decisions. Most people would change their phone number and move to a quiet island. Dewji went back to work. Forbes estimates his fortune at roughly $2.1 billion, making him Tanzania's only billionaire. He has also signed the Giving Pledge and committed to donating at least half of his wealth. The Dewjis built an empire by manufacturing the ordinary things people use every day. Our next family started with unwanted gold mines and ended up controlling metals, finance, and one of Africa's most successful football clubs. Apparently, digging for gold was not enough entertainment. Number 8. The Motsepe family. Patrice. Motsepe did not become wealthy by discovering a magical new mine nobody had ever seen. He became wealthy by buying the mines everybody else had stopped wanting. Motsepe trained as a lawyer and became the first black partner at one of South Africa's major corporate law firms. That was already historic, but he was more interested in the deals crossing his desk than in spending the rest of his career writing them for other people. In the 1990s, when gold prices were weak and established mining companies were selling low-producing shafts, Motsepe bought in. The mines looked tired, the margins looked ugly, and the opportunity looked exactly right to him. He introduced performance-based pay for workers, cut costs, and made marginal operations profitable. Those assets eventually became African Rainbow Minerals, a mining group with interests in gold, platinum, iron ore, manganese, and coal. In 2008, Motsepe became the first black African to appear on the Forbes Billionaire list. His current fortune moves with mining shares, but sits around $3.4 billion. Speaking of the thinking that turned unwanted mines into a $3 billion fortune, a lot of it comes down to how the brain performs when it matters. That's the idea behind an audio series called The Genius Switch. It's based on the neuroscience of the flow state, that mode where focus and creativity click at the same time. And the whole routine is just listening with headphones a few minutes a day. It's a one-time $39, less than a single online course, and it's backed by a 90-day money-back guarantee, so you can test it on yourself with nothing to lose. If you're watching on your TV, pause and scan the QR code on screen with your phone camera, or tap the first link in the description. Now, back to how they locked all of it in place for good. Now here is the family architecture. More than 99% of the family's private holding company, ARMI, is indirectly owned through trusts benefiting Motsepe, his immediate family, and the Motsepe Foundation. In other words, the mine shares do not simply sit in one man's brokerage account waiting for the next generation to argue over them. The structure was built to last. His eldest son, Thlopi Motsepe, now chairs Mamelodi Sundowns, the football club the family transformed into a continental powerhouse. Patrice, meanwhile, leads the Confederation of African Football, so the father owns mines and helps run African football while the son runs the club. That is not a family group chat. That is a vertical integration of Saturday afternoon. Motsepe once bought mines that other people considered exhausted. The next family found even more value in assets people could hear, drink, and wear, then turned two separate careers into one enormous household balance sheet. Number 7. The Carter family. Jay-Z and Beyoncé did not build one family fortune. They built two, placed them under the same roof, and then bought a $200 million house because apparently the spreadsheet needed somewhere tasteful to live. Jay-Z's rise from Brooklyn's Marcy houses is already one of the most repeated stories in modern music. But the interesting part is what happened after the record started selling. He treated fame as the customer acquisition department for a much larger business. He built Roc Nation, invested in technology and real estate, accumulated art, and, most importantly, bought equity in premium liquor brands. He later sold half of Armand de Brignac to LVMH and a majority stake in Douce to Bacardi. Forbes now estimates his fortune at about $2.8 billion. Beyoncé took a different route to the same destination. In 2010, she created Parkwood Entertainment and began bringing management, production, tours, documentaries, and visual projects under her own control. That decision matters because a performer can earn a fee, but an owner keeps the back end. Her Cowboy Carter tour became the highest-grossing country tour ever, and Forbes estimated in late 2025 that her music, touring, and businesses had pushed her personal fortune to $1 billion. Together, that gives the Carter household an estimated $3.8 billion, before trying to value the cultural influence, catalogs, and long-term brand power that do not sit neatly inside a calculator. And the next generation is already visible. Blue Ivy has performed on major stages, earned a Grammy credit, and appeared in the family's creative projects. Nobody should be planning a child's corporate succession before she can legally drive. But let us be honest, this is not exactly a family short on intellectual property. The Carters turned attention into ownership, and that is the real trick. Plenty of famous people rent the spotlight. This family bought the building, installed better lighting, and started charging other people for the view. But the next name on our list created a fortune from one logo so powerful that people still line up for shoes connected to a man who stopped playing professional basketball more than 2 decades ago. Number 6. The Jordan family. Michael Jordan earned roughly $90 million in salary during his entire NBA career. That sounds enormous until you compare it with what happened afterward, because the basketball money now looks like the free sample at the supermarket. Jordan's first Nike contract in 1984 paid him $500,000 a year plus royalties. The Air Jordan line became a cultural machine, and Forbes estimates that his corporate partnerships have paid him about $2.4 billion before tax over the years. Nike now sends him close to $300 million annually. He can wake up, do absolutely nothing connected to a basketball, and still have one of the most profitable seasons in sports. Then came ownership. Jordan bought control of the Charlotte Hornets and sold his majority stake in 2023 in a transaction valuing the franchise at about $3 billion while retaining a minority position. He also co-owns 23XI Racing in NASCAR because apparently dominating one American sport left too much free time. His current net worth is around $4.3 billion, but the Jordan family fortune is larger than a pile of endorsement checks. The name itself functions like an asset. His children have worked across sports, fashion, and brand-related ventures, with Jasmine Jordan building a career in sports marketing and Marcus Jordan creating the Trophy Room retail concept. They did not inherit a normal surname. They inherited a logo that can walk into a room 5 minutes before they do. Think about the business model for a moment. Most athletes sell their performance while they are young and then hope the money lasts. Jordan attached his identity to a product category, kept the royalty stream, and allowed each new generation of customers to discover him again through sneakers. A teenager who never watched the 1998 finals can still contribute to the family fortune on release day. The Jordans own one of the most valuable names in sport. Our next family owns something less glamorous but far more difficult to see: a telecom network, oil blocks, and a private cable running beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Number 5. The Adenuga family. Mike Adenuga once drove a taxi in New York while studying for an MBA. Today, his family owns a 9,800-kilometer submarine cable connecting Nigeria to the United Kingdom. That is a fairly aggressive career progression. Adenuga made his first million at 26 by trading lace and distributing soft drinks. Then he moved into oil, winning drilling licenses and building Conoil Producing, which now operates several blocks in the Niger Delta. But the family fortune truly changed when he entered telecommunications. Globacom launched in 2003 and immediately disrupted Nigeria's mobile market by introducing per-second billing at a time when customers were commonly charged by the minute. The company grew into one of the country's largest networks, with around 17 million subscribers according to Forbes. Then Adenuga made the sort of investment that separates a phone company from an infrastructure dynasty. Globacom built Glo One, a privately owned 9,800-kilometer fiber optic cable running from Lagos to the United Kingdom and connecting 17 African and European countries. So when someone in Nigeria sends a large file, streams a film, or closes an international business deal, there is a chance the data is moving through an asset owned by one family. The cable is under the ocean, the money is above it, and most customers never think about either one. Adenuga's fortune is currently estimated around $6.8 billion, and the succession story is no longer theoretical. His daughter Bella Disu joined Globacom in 2004 and now serves as executive vice chairman. She also runs the family's property business and sits on major corporate boards. This is not a daughter appearing for a ceremonial photograph once a year. She has spent more than 2 decades inside the machinery. The family also controls a large stake in listed petroleum marketer Conoil and maintains major property holdings: telecom, oil, real estate, and undersea infrastructure. That is not diversification so much as refusing to be dependent on anything that happens above ground. Adenuga built the pipes carrying calls and data. Our next family built a private toll system around the software companies running the modern office, and then used part of the fortune to erase an entire graduating class's student debt. Number 4. The Smith family. Robert F. Smith figured out that the most profitable software is often the software nobody brags about at dinner. He trained as a chemical engineer, worked at Kraft, and even earned patents related to coffee filtration. Then he moved into investment banking and began advising technology companies. In 2000, he founded Vista Equity Partners with a very specific idea: buy enterprise software businesses, improve the operations, and benefit from subscription revenue customers are deeply reluctant to cancel. This is not the glamorous side of technology. Vista's companies make software for payroll, insurance, schools, governments, and corporate systems. Nobody sleeps outside a store waiting for the newest accounting platform, but companies keep paying for it every month, which is a much more relaxing kind of popularity. Vista now manages more than $103 billion in assets and oversees over 90 enterprise software and technology-enabled companies. Forbes estimates Smith's fortune at around $10 billion. The firm remains private, meaning Smith does not spend every quarter explaining his long-term decisions to public shareholders who started paying attention last Tuesday. But the moment that made his name familiar outside finance came in 2019 at Morehouse College. During the commencement ceremony, Smith announced that his family would eliminate the student debt of the graduating class. The final gift reached $34 million and covered loans held by more than 400 students, parents, and guardians. You could actually see the graduates trying to process the sentence in real time. One moment they had student loans, the next moment a billionaire had deleted the tab. That gift also explains the Smith family's wider strategy. The fortune is not just being held for consumption, it is being converted into institutions, education programs, and long-term influence. Smith has 7 children, and although they are not being presented as Vista's next management team, the family name is increasingly attached to philanthropic infrastructure designed to outlive him. Smith made billions owning the boring software companies everybody needs. The next family makes money from products you can touch, eat, and build with, while holding public companies so tightly that the stock market is allowed into the house but not given a key. Number 3. The Rabiu family. Abdul Samad. Rabiu owns 98.2% of a publicly traded cement company. Read that again. The public can buy shares, analysts can write reports, and traders can argue all day, but the family is still sitting on nearly the entire cake with the serving knife in its hand. Rabiu came from a prominent business family in Kano, Nigeria. His father, Khalifa Ishaku Rabiu, was a major merchant and industrialist who gave his son land and an early commercial foundation. Abdul Samad launched BUA International in 1988, initially importing iron, steel, and chemicals, before moving into the much harder work of manufacturing. BUA expanded into sugar, flour, edible oils, cement, ports, and real estate. The key was buying underperforming industrial assets and then adding capacity around them. In 2020, Rabiu merged his private cement interest with a listed company to create BUA Cement. Today, he owns 98.2% of that business and 95% of listed food manufacturer BUA Foods. Forbes currently values his fortune at roughly $12.3 billion, although the number can move dramatically with Nigerian share prices. The asset math is almost rude. A tiny shift in the value of those two companies can add or remove hundreds of millions from the family fortune, while the rest of us are still deciding whether to pay extra for delivery. And succession is already entering the frame. Kabiru Rabiu serves as a group executive director. Hadiza Rabiu works in the real estate division. In early 2026, Ishaku Abdul Samad Rabiu, known as Khalifa, was appointed Chief Officer for Global Procurement and Strategic Operations at BUA Foods after working in several operating roles. The next generation is not being handed abstract trust fund statements. It is being handed sugar refineries, supply chains, and cement plants. That matters because industrial fortunes are difficult to inherit well. A luxury apartment can sit quietly. A factory has thousands of workers and begins complaining before sunrise. The Rabius are already training heirs inside the noise. BUA can help feed a city and supply the cement to expand it. Our next family built a $20 billion technology company after its founder became so broke that his car was repossessed from the office parking lot. That is not a motivational poster. That actually happened. Number 2. The Stewart family. David Stewart once stood inside his own struggling company and watched a repossession agent take his car from the parking lot. Today, Forbes estimates he is worth about $12.4 billion. Somewhere, that repossession agent has probably stopped telling the story at parties. Stewart grew up in Missouri in a family of 8 children during segregation. His father worked as a mechanic, janitor, and trash collector, and the family experienced poverty directly. Stewart built a career in sales at companies including FedEx, then co-founded Worldwide Technology in 1990 with Jim Kavanaugh. The early business sold computers and printers, but it nearly ran out of cash. Stewart sometimes went without a paycheck, and lenders were not exactly fighting to return his calls. The breakthrough came through government and corporate contracts, and WWT gradually evolved from a reseller into a global technology integrator. Today, the privately held company generates more than $20 billion in annual revenue, employs over 10,000 people, and operates across more than 55 locations. It helps major corporations and government agencies test, assemble, and deploy complex combinations of hardware, cloud systems, cybersecurity tools, and artificial intelligence infrastructure. In plain English, when a giant organization buys millions of dollars of technology from different vendors and needs all of it to work together without setting the building on fire, WWT is one of the companies it calls. The Stewart family story also has an unusual second act. David and his wife Thelma have 2 children. Their son, David Stewart II, runs Polarity, a media company behind Lion Forge Animation. Their daughter, Kimberly Stewart, runs film production company K-Media. Both have received Academy Awards connected to their work. The father built the infrastructure behind corporate technology. The children moved into stories, animation, and film. Same family, very different screens. This is what makes the Stewarts such a strong number 2. The fortune was not inherited, the company remained private, and the next generation did not simply imitate the founder. They took the capital, confidence, and access created by the first empire and built in another direction. But even a $20 billion technology company looks compact beside our number 1. Because the final family does not merely own products. It controls the industrial ingredients a country needs to construct buildings, grow food, and keep vehicles moving. If an industry can have a landlord, this is what it looks like. Number 1. The Dangote family. The Dangote family does not literally own every cement plant in Africa, but the title promise is not as exaggerated as it sounds. Aliko Dangote owns 85% of Dangote Cement, the largest cement producer on the continent, with operations across 10 African countries and capacity of roughly 55 million tons a year. That is the kind of scale where the company stops feeling like a manufacturer and starts feeling like weather. Roads, towers, bridges, housing projects, and factories all need cement, and Dangote has positioned his family directly beside the mixer. The fortune began before Aliko. His grandfather, Sanusi Dantada, was a successful commodities trader in Kano, and Aliko grew up around the logic of buying, moving, and selling essential goods. He started his own trading operation in the late 1970s, importing products such as rice, sugar, and cement. Then he made the decision that changed everything. Instead of importing what Africa needed, he would manufacture it locally. Dangote moved into sugar refining, flour, salt, and cement, building factories at a scale competitors struggled to match. Forbes now values him at more than $31 billion, making him the richest black person in the world by a huge margin. Then he made the bet that nearly broke the whole machine. On a marshy stretch of land outside Lagos, Dangote spent roughly $20 billion building a massive oil refinery. The project required moving hundreds of millions of cubic meters of sand, constructing private roads and a private port, and importing one of the world's few cranes capable of lifting 5,000 tons. Delays piled up. Costs doubled. Critics said Nigeria could not complete a project that large. Dangote later admitted it was the biggest risk of his life. The refinery began production in 2024 and reached full capacity in early 2026, processing about 650,000 barrels per day. Plans now call for expansion to 1.4 million barrels per day, which would make it the largest single-site refinery in the world. So the same family that dominates African cement is now reshaping the fuel market of one of the world's largest oil-producing nations. And do not forget the fertilizer complex, sugar business, and salt operations. Dangote can supply the cement for the warehouse, fertilizer for the crops, sugar for the drinks, salt for the kitchen, and fuel for the truck carrying all of it. That is not a conglomerate. That is a country starter kit. The succession plan is finally becoming visible too. His daughters Halima and Maria sit on the board of Dangote Cement, and Dangote has said all three daughters now hold executive roles across the wider group. He has also stepped back from chairing some listed businesses and brought in professional managers. That is the crucial test, because building the empire is only half the story. The other half is making sure it still works when the founder is no longer walking the factory floor. So does the Dangote family own an entire industry? Not in the literal legal sense. But when one family owns most of the continent's largest cement producer, runs Africa's biggest refinery, and controls businesses supplying essential materials from fertilizer to food ingredients, the distinction starts to feel slightly academic. The Dangotes do not merely sell to the economy. They own several of the doors the economy has to walk through. And that is why they are the richest black family on this list. And with that note, we wrap up this journey through the 10 richest black family fortunes in the world. Which family surprised you most? Was it the Stewart family going from a repossessed car to a $20 billion company, the Adenugas owning a cable beneath the Atlantic, or the Dangotes selling nearly every industrial ingredient required to build a modern economy? Drop your pick in the comments, hit the like button if one of these stories caught you off guard, and subscribe to Black Status because we break down the families behind the world's biggest fortunes every single week.